Hello, it's Miss Schwartz. I had some wonderful subs to read that long part of the chapter. I'm going to finish it up for us now. Then Mrs. Brisbane quieted everyone down. Don't you think it's time for prizes? In her hand were the ribbons she'd taken out of the basket. Everyone cheered when Saya and Miranda received blue ribbons. Even though their swan boat didn't last, it definitely was the most beautiful boat. But when it came to the most seaworthy boat, it wasn't so easy to decide who won. Undoubtedly, the tall ship would have won, Mr. Brisbane said, but because of what happened, I can only award it an honorable mention. Richie and Kirk didn't seem disappointed to receive red ribbons. As for first place, we were all so busy worrying about Humphrey, no one really noticed which boat came in first. Since Seth and Tabitha's Chinese junk and Heidi and Gail's sailboat both made it to shore, we're calling it a tie. You'll all receive gold ribbons. From the cheers and smiles, I could tell that no one was disappointed. Seth and Tabitha did a funny victory dance. Heidi and Gail joined in. Then Mrs. Morgenstern came over to congratulate the girls. You did a great job, she said. I was so focused on you winning the most beautiful award, I didn't think of you actually winning the race. But you did it. Gail and Heidi beamed, and the sail was spectacular. The white sail on the blue water, it was a classic. Gail, you were right all along. I'm very proud of you. Gail and her mom hugged, then Heidi and Gail's mom hugged, then Heidi and Gail hugged. I wish there was someone for me to hug, although hugging might be a little dangerous for a small hamster. It was almost time to go back to school. As everyone else was busy packing up, I spotted Kirk and Richie wading into the water to retrieve their tall ship, which was half submerged near the edge of the pond. Luckily, the water only came up to their knees. Saya and Miranda watched on shore as a few of their colorful feathers floated by. Garth and AJ looked for their boat, too, but all they could find was the flag. Art and Mandy waded in the water, but the Viking ship was totally gone. On the edge of the pond, Mr. Morales cupped his hands around his mouth and yelled, "If you see an old raft down there, let me know!" When Kirk and Richie finally pulled the remains of the tall ship out of the water, it was muddy and mucky. But they cleaned it up, working together. I was happy to stay in my basket on the bus ride back. I sat between Mrs. Brisbane and Ms. Mack, the best seat in the house. If I grabbed onto the inside of the basket, I could lift the top of my head just enough to see them both. You certainly picked an amazing day to return, Miss Brisbane said. Every day is an interesting day to return. Every day is interesting for the kids in room 26, Ms. Mack replied. Mrs. Brisbane reached in her jacket and pulled out a piece of paper. In all the excitement, I forgot to check my list. Ms. Brisbane and I could both see it. Lunches and drinks, in chest, treasure maps, Captain Kidd and his motley crew, blue, red, gold ribbons for prizes, secret guests, Mrs. Mack. You didn't forget anything, Mrs. Mack said. Mrs. Brisbane folded up her paper. No, but a few things happened that weren't on the list. You know what they say, the best laid plans of mice and men often go astray. The best laid plans of hamsters go astray too, but that's what makes life interesting. Soon, Mrs. Wright led us all singing a boat song that was very interesting because different groups started in at different times. I squeaked up loudest of all, "Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream." It was a fun song to sing, and I thought maybe someday I'd like to row gently down a stream. Even though today's trip had almost turned into a nightmare, seeing Ms. Mack again was definitely a dream come true. A good heart, mateys, there be the only treasure worth having, from Jolly Roger's Guide to Life by I.C. Waters. One more chapter to go. Let's finish up strong.